Hi, I'm Juan and I'll be showcasing uh, the game framework I made in 2019. This framework provides the ability to easily implement a 2D network game. And the reason for it is that um, there are many functionalities such as delegates and network devices that that you can prevent a user from logging into a server or make the server not joinable when the game starts or when a number of clients has been reached. And you can also communicate data such as this humanoid pawn class easily without needing to use other things such other than the class itself. So this is called by using an archive data serializer, which is used to tell the class how the data is going to be serialized and how it's going to be passed. And the good thing about it is that if it's serialized this way, once it's received, it is deserialized in the same exact way. So that is really cool. Not only that, but the engine itself handles all the memory allocations. For example, when you create a pawn, it wants to avoid as much cache misses as possible. So all the components and all the things that are within the pawn are, for example, the physics are allocated in a continuous manner. And once for example, in this case, when I create a pawn, we set all the properties. Um, and this is the scene. The scene is basically the level. Um, we have, in this case, the menu scene, the logo scene, and the game scene. The game scene is the actual gameplay. Uh, like I said, this is just a showcase, so it's not gonna be a very complicated game. It might not even be a game, but it's just a way to show you how uh, powerful this can be to easily create 2D network games. So in this case, we for this the game scene enter is called when the game scene is loaded, and we said we load the resources. So here we generate all the textures needed for this level. We create the commands. The commands are basically all the things that are going to be used as an action. And then once you set all these things up, you then go ahead and get the local player controller. And this player controller is basically the one that handles, the inputs, all things that have to do with the player. For example, also networking of that player. And as you can see here, we're getting the network device. The network device is basically functionality for the networking side. And in this case, for example, what we have here is on logout delegate that we're binding, and that is called this code will be called when the server or the client are logged out. So in the case of server, we're not going to do anything for now. We can definitely you know get the disconnected player and destroy it. In the case of the client, we will display a message box that says logout, device was logged out from the server, and then we can go ahead and change the scenes. Now, change the scenes can be because it's on the main. It's a main. It has to be run on the main thread. We have something called the main thread on tick delegate, which all the functionality here will be assured to be called in the main thread. All this because the on logout can be called on a different thread because it's all related to the networking side. Now here we check whether the server is actually the device is a server device. In other words, it's the server handle that we are talking about. If it's the server, then what we do is we create the player for that server. We possess uh, that the pawn that we create, and then we also assign a delegate that says every time someone else logs in, we will create a player controller, and we will assign that player controller the controls needed to control a pawn, and we will also create a pawn, and that pawn will be possessed by the logged in player. And once that's done, and because that's main logic, we will need to run that on the main thread. So again, on login can be called on another thread that we don't know, but the main thread on tick delegate will assure that this is called on the main thread. And we also say that whenever the max length is reached, we will set the server joinable to false, so we will not be accepting more clients. This can also be called once the game starts. So I believe that once the game starts, I don't have that option here, but we can also set the server to be not joinable once the game starts. And then once the max lines has been reached, we will start the game. And once the game starts, we will have a timeline, and this timeline would just be basically a um, rendering of a clock, and this is the clock. So the game it will say game starting in, and we will have the time, and then we will just this is the rendering position in the screen, the colors and everything, and even the alignments are available. And then once once the timeline is finished, because it's not looping, as we said it here, then we will create an AI controller, not a player controller, but an AI controller, and a zombie. And that zombie will be also a humanoid pawn, but this time it will have different functionality. So, for example, the functionality can be, to chase a player, and as you can see, the target pawn will be a given pawn here. And the AI controller here will possess this zombie, and then all these settings such as the sprite and the physics are also set. Once the game starts, that's all we give to the game scene, and the game starts. Nothing else. We also have update and render, uh, which you can add, customized logic to, make it a little bit more, um, make a game more dynamic, and you can also, spawn zombies here. But in this case, it will just spawn one zombie. So I'll click on host, and as you can see, the IP is released. And then once you click on join, it will join the game, and the game starts because the max number of clients has been reached, and the game will start immediately. So once it starts, we saw that it was going to call a delegate on the zombie, and the zombie here is chasing the closest player, I believe. So if I get near here, it should start getting a player here. Yeah, and now I'm getting chased by this guy. And this is a pretty simple application, but definitely the game framework has the ability to create more complex um, games. Now the, the HP here is 0, and there's a callback so that when that you can make when the HP reaches 0, whether to destroy the player or I don't know, heal it up. And once I close the server, this because of the delegate we made about on-device logout, it will this message box appears and it will disconnect and will take us to the main uh, scene as we saw. So definitely there's a lot of room that we can so that we can make a more complicated game. Um, yes. So if you have any questions about this, please let me know. I'll be happy to assist. I am constantly, you know, eager to receive feedback. You can check other projects I've made by going to saya.games, xyah.games. Thank you.